Good evening, everyone. All right, so we are going to, mostly tonight, we're going to start with giving a review of Monster Truckers, Long Haul into the Worstlands. Now, to understand this one, I am told you must also be familiar with TriCube Tales, because that is the game engine that it uses. I am not familiar with that game engine, so we will likely be going through this one too. And then we will see where that stands. If we wind up having a lot of time left over and don't go into crazy song breaks like we have in the past, I have a couple other projects that we can look at, but I figure this gives us a pretty good place to start. So you will notice that this is brought to us by Table Cat Games. I have some question as to whether or not this cover art is... No? Okay, well, Nanalizioc. So I'm going to assume that this is not CGI. There are a couple things in here that make me question whether it is or not. However, this is a style in which it could potentially be difficult to tell. So I'm not going to say it is or isn't without knowing for sure, but that's what we got. This is a Rules in the Dark stream. So this is a unconventional stream. I will be smoking. I will perhaps be drinking. You never know. We will be looking at other people's material. We may do some singing. I should start the timer. Welcome to the Worstlands. Thank you for picking up this test drive of Monster Truckers, Long Haul into the Worstlands. This test drive is to give you a taste of what Monster Truckers is all about. The full book will come with more character and vehicle creation guidelines, lots of lore, and tons more. This game uses the TriCube Tales system by Zadmar Games as its engine. We got that one right here. For anyone interested in this, by the way, the TriCube Tales rules are currently available on DriveThru for $1. Anybody interested in the test drive is pay what you want, if I remember correctly. Highway 66, mile marker 818. The turkeys have spoiled. You know what? I kind of want to run into a mutant monster turkey monster card. I think that'd be fun. The Bear Essentials. Monster Truckers is best played with 3 to 5 players. One player acts as a sort of referee. In other games, this is called a game master, but in Monster Truckers, they're called the dispatcher. You know what? I'm not a huge fan of kitschy, let's insert a title for a GM, but I like dispatcher because it's meta. And I could see you playing with that with Ask the GM questions. Like you could try to call your dispatcher. I like that. The rest of the players are truckers who travel through the Worstlands, helping folks, recovering weird things, and delivering freight. When a trucker encounters a challenge, they roll 1 to 3 6-sided dice. Hence, TriCube Tales. depending on their character archetype, against a difficulty of 4 to 6, depending on the situation, and they need to succeed with at least 1 die. The most important elements that make up a trucker are script, resolve, perks, and quirks. The script represents luck and providence, while resolve represents tenacity, spirit, health, and determination. Script and resolve can be recovered during play, but can never exceed a trucker's starting quota. Perk represents special talents, abilities, skills, arcane items, professions, etc. Perks can reduce the difficulty of the challenges the truckers face, while quirks can increase it. Interesting. So, advantage drawback system. The trucker can spend script on perks and can recover script from quirks. Okay. So a tradable income system, a tradable economy. I like that. Back in the day, truckers could get script to pay for tolls. This is true. That's why we're using the term here. It's called Karma in Tri-Cube Tales. Karma makes sense for that. I like the refit. I also like the fact that you can consider it as altering the script. That all works. That's a nice play on words. It's a nice play on rules. I am a fan. The truckers make all of the rolls. Yes! The dispatcher never rolls dice. They only describe challenges and assign the traits and difficulties and narrate the outcome. Yes, put the power in the hands of the players. The power to succeed, the power to fail, the power to hurt the enemy, the power to be hurt by the enemy. Let the GM worry about the story. Let the players roll the dice. Yes, I understand it's fun to roll dice, but I am much more a fan of active game systems vis-a-vis systems where the players make rolls to dodge rather than wait and get hit by rolls from the GM, etc. Each trucker needs 3 6-sided dice, as well as 3 resolve and 3 script tokens. Use whatever works for these tokens. The dispatcher needs some effort tokens for challenges, but they don't require any dice. You also need the truckers included in the game, and you can make your own in the full game. Having a notepad paper for making a map and a logbook would be handy too, though we've made some special ones that you can download and print at home. The test characters, the map, the logbook, all available in the Pay What You Want PDF. Monster Truckers Guild Driver's Manual. My cigar cutter did not cut evenly, so if you see me raising my hand to my mouth, I am removing micro bits of tobacco leaf until such time as they stop flaking out. Let's get you up at speed on how we got here. Yay, starting with some world origin. Thank you. I appreciate you. The war between the monster folk and humanity went real bad. Just when we thought we'd won, the humans unleashed the necrotechnic bombs. We don't remember who started the war, but we know that it was us who scorched the sky. The bombs were a hybrid of technology and magic that screwed up the world, did a real number on monster folk, and put surviving humans on top. Humans can't survive for long outside the protection of the cities because of the NT radiation, so that's where the monster folk come in. We do all the dirty jobs they can't. And thanks to entropy and the cargo drones failing, the Monster Truckers Guild gets the job of hauling freight across the Worstlands. The Worstlands, which is a great twist on Wastelands, by the way. Really appreciate some of the creativity that went into this. The Worstland is what's left of the world. It's a landscape full of weird and dangerous creatures. Plus, there's road bandits Just walk away. Leave the fuel and walk away. You know I'll use him at some point if we do something with this. Hazardous machines left over from the war and undead ranks of the highway patrol. Wow, zombie cops. Just when I thought I couldn't hate zombies or cops any more than I already do, somebody made a sandwich. For more on the Worstlands and what's found in it, be sure to pick up the full version of Monster Truckers. One of the core concepts of being a Monster Trucker is to choose your archetype. A Monster Trucker's archetype consists of a trait and a monster type. The three traits are agile, brawny, crafty. If anybody who's been talking about me about fast play game design aesthetics for Quick Quest that I'm working on to make a easily actual playable game system, I'm just saying, I feel like a lot of these ideas were stolen with a time machine, because a lot of these things are the things that I have been discussing with people for the last month. Agile characters roll 3d6 for anything related to quickness, dexterity, or stealth. They roll 3d6 for ranged combat. Brawny characters roll 3d6 for any challenges based on strength, toughness, stamina, or athletics, and they roll 3d6 for melee combat. Crafty characters roll 3d6 for challenges related to charisma, intellect, willpower, or perception, and roll 3d6 for mental combat. The way that an archetype works is that a trucker is good at one trait and not as good at the others. If you have an appropriate trait for a challenge, you need to make the agility roll, and you're the agility type, you get to roll 3 dice. If you lack the required archetype trait, you get 2 dice. For instance, if you're facing a crafting challenge as an agile character. Okay, pretty straightforward. Do you know how many brains you're moving? Monster type. In Test Drive, there are 4 types of monster truckers. For more types, see the upcoming Monster Truckers Long Haul into the Worstlands core rulebook. 4 types. Vampires, aka Drax, aka Vamps. The necrotech bombs and resulting supernatural radiation really messed up vampires by removing most of their powers, but as a bonus, Vamps lost their vulnerability to sunlight. They don't have a vulnerability to sunlight. Sunlight just makes them sparkle. Wait, why did everybody just unsub? They still hunger for human blood, though. The only reliable source of it is blood brew, a synthetic blood that tastes just like the real thing, mostly. Werewolves, aka doggos, aka fuzzballs. These are the classic wolf people hybrids. Most are stuck in their wolf form from the NT bombs. Those that retain the ability to think while in this state are part of the monster society. Those who retain only their base instincts headed out into the Worstlands. Aha! So, we have thinking werewolves for PC types, and barbarous, monstrous, not able to think anymore werewolves for NPC types, with the exception of probably if you wanted to put in a really important NPC. I like that. I'm down with all of this. Zompig. Ooh, shiny. On point. Zippers, aka bolts, aka Franks. Zippers were only found in Mary Shelley's book and many filmographic depictions until the war. Humanity's magical and scientific experiments and dire need for soldiers resulted in the Zippers, human soldiers created from parts from dead ones. After the war, the human government continued the program of using dead of the lower class as zippers for cheap labor. Ooh, I feel a story coming on. Mummies, aka wraps, aka fossils. A few mummies are pharaohs from ancient Egypt that still roam the world, but many more are the results of human experimentation to preserve life. Project Mummy was born out of Beauty Max Corporation's attempts to sell eternal life to their customers. The results weren't exactly marketable. It turns out most humans don't want to look like dried out husks wrapped in bandages. Most of the project's test subjects and the first wave of dissatisfied customers make up today's mummies population. Perks. Perks and quirks are simple words or phrases and are meant to be open to interpretation. Perks are bonuses that allow truckers to do amazing stuff, including the following: receive a temporary benefit such as aid from an NPC, gain insight or clues about one particular situation, and most commonly, overcome obstacles with the use of a perk. Quirks are setbacks that truckers can use to increase the difficulty of a roll by 1 to recover 1 script. Truckers must declare the use of a quirk before rolling, and otherwise you would just wait until you passed by more than 1 and then say, oh, by the way, that was really slimy, and then you would get a point back. And yeah, I completely agree. That's got to be done ahead of time or it's just nothing but abused. In some rare cases, a dispatcher may decide that a quirk applies to a challenge, but it's usually the trucker making that call. Script represents luck and the world giving you just a little bit of a break. It can be spent to activate perks, but also to reduce the difficulty challenge by 1. If reducing the difficulty of a challenge, the trucker makes this decision. If reducing the difficulty of a challenge, the trucker makes this decision after rolling. Then they narrate how the perk gives them an edge. No more than 1. So you have to call it first to reclaim it, but you only spend it if you need it to succeed. So very similar to like a stress system for those familiar with Forged in the Dark, except in my humble opinion, this works better. The exact benefits and uses of a perk are always at the discretion of the dispatcher, but broadly defined perk has a wider scope, and a more narrowly defined perk has more impact when it comes into play. Okay. Using perks and script. Using a perk often comes with spending script. Here are some guidelines. If you want to do something that regular people couldn't even attempt, but which your perk should allow you to do automatically, you spend a script token and you don't have to roll. The team finds a group of deceased human corpse soldiers covered in a strange goo. Rusty the vampire has a necromancy perk. He spends a script and revives the spirit of one of the soldiers to find out what happened and what's up with the goo. I agree. Reviving the dead is something that an average person doesn't have the ability to do. And apparently, using the perk just lets you do it auto-magically. My cigar has a habit of going out when I'm talking because I'm not utilizing it properly. That's why I keep having to, reheat it. If you want to do something that isn't normally possible, but which your perk should allow you to at least attempt, you have a few options. Spend script so you don't have to roll. Roll without spending script and accept your fate. Roll, see the results, then spend script to reduce the difficulty by 1. Note, you cannot roll first and then spend script to automatically succeed. If you roll, you can only spend script to reduce the difficulty. Okay. Toast, the brawny zipper, has a supernatural strength perk. Bandits block the road with a bus. Toast decides to push it out of the way. The dispatcher rules that the difficulty for this challenge is 4 for someone with that kind of strength. Toast is down to 1 script, so they decide to roll. The highest roll they get is a 3, so they reluctantly spend their last script to lower the difficulty, and then they succeed. That's a nice system for, again, leaving it in the hands of the players, because that's a situation where, all right, I'm down to 1. So if I spend my last 1, I'm done. But in this case, for this character, they'd be rolling 3 dice. So they're betting that they will get at least a single 4 on 3 dice. The chance of missing that is 1 in 2, 1 in 4, 1 in 8. Fairly reasonable. In this case, they missed, rolling, let's say, a 1, a 2, and a 3. So they spend their point to lower the difficulty to a 3, now having succeeded. They would have completely missed if they had only 1s and 2s, because spending the 1 point at that point wouldn't have allowed them. In which case, Toast would have gone up to the bus and just gone, nope, too heavy. If you only use a perk to add flavor to a scene, example, overcoming a challenge through magic or other ability that could just have been easily overcome through skill, you don't need to spend any script. Lucky the Mummy has a bug control perk. They decide that they're having thousands of bugs drive the truck. This is merely flavor. Lucky still needs to pass an agility challenge to weave through the hazards of the road. They're just using their bug magic to do it instead of their own hands and feet. Also nice, using flavor for abilities is kind of cool. More on scripts and perks. Think of perks in terms of overcoming challenges. A trucker only rolls if it's important to the story, but they can use a perk to automatically succeed without rolling. It costs a script. Likewise, it costs scripts to reduce the difficulty of a challenge, but if a perk gives them no other benefit, then it doesn't cost any script. If a trucker has no script, the dispatcher can offer a complication instead. Knowledge related to perks usually imply knowledge in a related field. For example, a big rig mechanic knows their way around a truck engine, yet probably wouldn't know much about helicopter repair. They'd still have a better chance of fixing one than someone with no mechanical skills. Likewise, a vampire with a fencing perk could apply their fighting expertise to other combat situations. A surgeon perk also applies to general medical training and so on. Okay. I'm down with this so far. Weapons and equipment are mostly to add flavor and don't do anything mechanically to the game. If it makes sense that a trucker would have an item, then they do. Gear doesn't make a difference during challenges. However, if they have special equipment or a particularly powerful weapon, that can come in the form of a perk. So in other words, you can generally make a melee attack, or you can reach into your pocket and pull out a pocket knife. Or you can pull behind your seat and grab a crowbar and swing at somebody. Or you can pick up some debris and use it like a club. All of these wouldn't matter and you would roll normally. Or you could have a perk, Spiky Bat, which then gives you benefits because your trademark thing is you carry a big ass spiky bat. Truckers can use perks to assist their friends and allies. For example, a field medic might spend script to remove a wound affliction from an injured buddy, while a squad leader could spend script to inspire a companion, reducing their difficulty of a challenge. Assisting someone doesn't change the standard spending limit of 1 script per challenge. If a trucker spends a script to aid an ally, they can also spend this script to reduce the difficulty number further. Cool. A trucker with magic or supernatural perk can do anything a trained person could achieve with the right gear, as long as it thematically fits their type of magic. For example, a trucker with supernatural strength can bust open a door using their power, the same way a thief with a lockpick might do it. Spending script allows the magic user or those with supernatural abilities to perform even greater feats than flavor-based ones, overcoming a challenge a pro could manage with specialized gear. A trucker with supernatural strength can use script to push a truck out of a ditch, whereas a tow truck driver would have to use a tow cable and a winch. Always think of magic in terms of the result. It doesn't matter if a trucker with magical abilities disintegrates a door or just causes the lock to spring open. If the goal is to get through the door, they've succeeded. Magic is mostly narrative and doesn't change the mechanics. Example, if the dispatcher calls for an agile challenge to open the lock, a magic user must still resolve it as an agile challenge, even if they use magic to bypass the door. My question to that is, all right, I think I just answered my own question in my head. My question to that is, someone says, hey, can I try to get that door open? Sure, give me an agile challenge. And then someone else says, fuck that. I have a perk called Big Boot, and I'm just going to boot the door open. I'm going to kick it in right next to the knob and just blow the fucker right off the hinges. I think this trucker tip means when you're using magic in a way that doesn't change the challenge. As soon as the player said fuck that and decided to do a brute force thing, that's not where this tip applies, and that's where the dispatcher goes, okay, for you, that is not an agile challenge. That is a whatever the other ability was, the strength-based one. Earning script back. The most common way to earn script back is by leaning into a quirk. The trucker has to declare they're using a quirk before rolling for a challenge. Then they describe their actions in a way that incorporates the quirk. Once they do that, the dispatcher increases the challenge of the difficulty by 1, and this can take it above 6. Ooh. The quirk is earned regardless of whether the roll succeeds or fails. I like that. My question here, and this may get answered later, but I'm just putting it into the ether. Does the dispatcher declare the challenge difficulty before the quirk is called? Or do you go, I want to open the door, but I don't like touching things that are orange, and the handle is orange. So I'm going to make it now harder for me to open the door. And I'm like, okay, well, you get your point back, but I was going to give that a difficulty of a 6 because I know that the door is jammed and stuck and also locked, and you've now made it a 7. Or do I say the door is jammed and stuck and locked, and thus the difficulty would be a 6? And then the player goes, oh, let's not use my quirk on this. Or you know what? I just know I'm going to fail this one anyway, so fuck it. I'll use my quirk and then let somebody else try to open the door. Truckers usually recover 1 script for using a quirk in this way, but if they succeed at the challenge roll, they can recover 1 resolve instead if they want. Editing point. Just in case at some point This video gets to Vincent. My suggestion would be to change this sentence. They can recover one resolve instead if they want. Is sufficient. They can recover one resolve instead if they want that instead. Is redundant. They can recover one resolve if they want that instead. Is also sufficient. Basically, either take that instead out or take that instead out. CB alerts. If a trucker faces danger in a previous... By the way, I'm pretty sure that this is an early version. This is early access, one-man crew, yada, 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 other stupid things people say. These kinds of typos are generally pre-editor, so I'm not saying that says anything negative about the quality of the project. Just that's one of those verbal things that can slip in easily, especially when you're writing books late at night, early in the morning, as us game designers are off to do around our normal jobs. If a trucker faces danger in a previous scene that they spent at least one script to overcome it, then after the scene, the trucker can earn one script by reporting the danger they encountered on the CB. Only one trucker in the crew can do this per scene. Thus, if your 4 players all spent one script, and then one person breaker 19s it, only one person who jumps on the CB to breaker 19 it can get their script back, and everyone else has to get quirky with it. That's nice. Challenges. When you're required to roll, that's a challenge. Each challenge has a difficulty of 4 to 6, easy, standard, hard. Most challenges should be a difficulty of 5, thus standard. But dispatch may decide that some challenges are easier, or, let me guess, harder? Harder! Yay! Dispatch also decides what type of challenge it is, agile, brawny, or crafty. Truckers roll 1 to 3d6 depending on their archetype. If a die roll equals or exceeds the difficulty, it's a success. If you equal or exceed on 2 to 3 dice, it's an exceptional success. Getting 3 6s on 3 dice is a critical success. Yeah, it would be. That's a 1 in 216 chance. Trucker performs an incredible feat or other exceptional narrative action, and all the truckers on the team earn 1 script if they're at least 1 below their maximum. So crits support your team. Failure. If none of the dice beat the difficulty, this needs to be equals or exceeds the difficulty, because currently you could both succeed and fail if you equal the difficulty. So this should be changed to equals or exceeds the difficulty. And maybe in the final version it has been. Critical failure. If a player rolls 1 on all their dice, it's
very bad.
Dispatch should come up with particularly interesting complications. A major event is one where extra effort is required to overcome it. This is represented by using effort tokens. Each die to equal or beat the difficulty removes a token, and the challenge is defeated once all tokens are gone. Truckers can, and usually should, work together to overcome such a challenge, and it requires several rolls. Failing any of these rolls comes with consequences. Fighting in combat can easily be handled through regular challenges, but if you prefer to have a turn-by-turn exchange of blows, use these guidelines. So the dice can conspire to bring you down. The dice can always conspire to bring you down. The dice, they tell a story. Dispatch assigns bad guys and creatures a difficulty of 4 to 6 based on their relative power to the truckers. Most of the baddies should be at difficulty 5, standard. They should have 1 or more effort tokens to represent their resolve. If you have a group of similar enemies, such as a horde of highway patrolmen, treat them as a single challenge with extra effort tokens. Successes remove 1 token, exceptional successes remove 2. Boss versions have double the resolve tokens required. For example, a machine gun wielding skeleton soldier could have 1 resolve token, but the squad leader has 2 resolve tokens. Turn order should make sense for the story, and truckers make all the rolls, if they roll to attack on their turn, and to defend on each enemy's turn. Again, active gameplay, players make all the rolls. As a general rule, truckers make 1 defense roll each turn. Ooh! If they are facing multiple foes, make them roll against the most dangerous attacker. Ooh! The price of failure. The price is wrong, Bob. When failing a roll, the price is usually obvious. The trucker is spotted siphoning ultra diesel from a rival's truck, or they miss in combat. The dispatcher could also remove 1 of the PC's resolve tokens, or perhaps introduce a complication to the scene if it feels right for the story. After a critical failure, rolling all 1s during a challenge, yep, that's what I said before, is super bad, no matter how skilled the trucker. If the trucker would lose 1 resolve on a normal failure, they lose 2 on a critical failure. A trucker can also earn a permanent quirk from a critical failure if it makes sense for the story. I like that. I like the fact that your character sheet can be affected by the narrative. Defeat and afflictions. Truckers are defeated when they run out of resolve tokens. Afflictions are described by the victor and treated as temporary quirks or permanent quirks if caused by a critical failure, except the dispatcher decides when to apply them. A trucker with more than 3 afflictions is retired from play, although they can be brought back if 1 or more of their afflictions are cured. I guess we'll get to that. Defeated characters gain an affliction appropriate to the situation, such as a broken arm, a phobia, bruised ego, etc. Invulnerable monsters could even suffer grievous injuries like getting chopped in half. Okay, we'll call it a draw. No matter the affliction, they recover all of their resolve, but they are usually unable to actively participate in the remainder of the scene. They may be unconscious, on the ground, fleeing in terror, or just too injured to continue. Death is a matter of narrative. While a trucker might decide to kill their foe in combat by giving them a fatal affliction, the GM should always warn the truckers if a challenge could result in the death of their character. Vehicles and how they work. Big rigs are trucks from the old world. Their engines are modified to run on ultra diesel, but their souls are the old road hounds of yesteryear. When playing monster truckers, the driver of a vehicle makes challenge rolls using their own trait, but they can utilize the vehicle's perks and quirks as if they were their own while operating it. Vehicle resolve. Big rigs get 3 resolve. When a trucker fails a challenge while behind the wheel, the dispatcher determines if resolve is lost by the trucker or the truck. If it's to the truck, the vehicle can gain a temporary or permanent afflictions like a character can gain. Okay, that's reasonable. Beating up a truck can cause it to not operate properly. That's pretty straightforward. The long haul. The long haul is our fancy name for a monster trucker's adventure. The dispatcher creates the adventure or uses a published scenario. The truckers fill in the details and create the plot along with their actions and role-playing. Generally, a monster trucker's long haul works like this. The truckers travel across the Worstlands. They meet interesting people, discover fantastic locations, and overcome obstacles. Each long haul is broken up by scenes. A typical long haul can unfold like this. In the first scene, the truckers are driving down the road and hear a strange tale on the CB about a deadly creature. With a plea for help dealing with it. This period needs to be over here because that's why that is capitalized. Which means this sentence should be, a typical long haul can unfold like this. In the first scene, comma, the truckers are driving down the road and hear a strange tale on the CB about a deadly creature, comma, with a plea for help dealing with it, period. In the next scene, they drive through an abandoned town and find evidence that the story is real. In another scene, they stop at a diner and meet some locals who have a hint of its lair and so forth. So, pretty much, pretty straightforward scene setup. That's good for less experienced GMs. Anyone that knows what they're doing will pretty much run that way anyway, but always right for the first timer. So having that information in there is good. Trucking team. Truckers form a trucking team. They can all ride in the same truck or be a convoy of a few trucks, regardless of their vehicle. Or you can have a trucker in one truck and another player in another vehicle. Blocker.
With a dog.
Oh yeah, the trucker in the truck definitely has a dog. The trucker in the blocker vehicle, they may have a Sally Field. Okay. So where's the bandit? Noctis, you're right there with me, buddy. Shared storytelling. The dispatcher and the truckers create the story together, encourage each other to tell a fun, eerie, sometimes scary, and oft-times wild story of life on the road and in a dangerous world. The dispatcher should ask truckers questions and listen to what they're saying during the game to build off their ideas and involve them in creation of the world around them. When truckers set out on a long haul, each leg of that journey is a scene. Scenes can be as simple as a brief pause in the monotony of the road or a more complex scenario. A scene also, again, if you've ever seen any trucker-oriented movie, of which there are a plethora in the 70s and 80s. Smokey and the Bandit series, Convoy, anything else that Jerry Reed was ever in, there's a bunch of options. That's exactly how the movie plays out. They skip hours at a time. So, if you're a new dispatcher and you're looking for information, I would suggest watching some of those movies. You will see how the scenes stage in those films, and that's exactly what you're aiming for here. What I'm aiming for is to relight my cigar. Scenes can be as simple as a brief pause in the monotony of the road or a more complex action scenario. A scene ends when it reaches a natural conclusion. The truckers get back in the big rig and continue down the road. They defeat a foe, or they finish exploring a strange place. Truckers are also part scouts and are responsible for creating the map of their journey, so that the Monster Trucker Guild has a better understanding of the Worstlands. Even if others have traveled the roads before them, the more data the Truckers Guild has, the better. After every scene that involves a trucker and that involves travel, a trucker draws on the map. The truckers can take turns mapping out, or there can be one navigator for the haul responsible for mapping the whole thing. Smokey and the Bandit with Victorian-era horror monsters. Yeah, exactly. Mad Max follows that pattern a bit as well. Yes, I would agree. I would agree that Mad Max, I would agree that the Road Warrior, not Mad Max. And I'm sure that's what you meant. I would agree the Road Warrior follows that pattern. Mad Max is a really... unless you mean the new version of Mad Max. But, yes. The series in general. Okay, yeah. That series is weird because the series really starts with the second movie, and no one needs to watch the first movie unless you just want to figure out why they were able to make the series in the first place. Because the first movie really isn't attached to the series at all. The movie Mad Max is not attached to the Mad Max series in any way. Attaching the first Mad Max movie to the Mad Max series is like starting a Robin Hood series with a movie where Robin Hood is still a noble and hasn't yet gone into the forest. The map can be a simple line, or it can be more complicated with descriptions and doodles representing where they've been and what they've seen. It all depends on how artistic the navigator is and how much time they want to spend on the map. However, don't go too bonkers and focus all your attention on the map if it detracts from the game. The majority of each long haul takes place on or close to a highway. Dispatchers give the highway a number. Any number will do. They also pick a starting mile marker. Again, this is arbitrary. It could be mile marker 1. It could be mile marker 288. Just remember, Highway 6 never takes you home. Highway 6 is a deadly fix. I dare anyone to remember where that comes from. As each scene that involves traveling on the highway unfolds, give a new mile marker for that scene. Distance doesn't matter exactly. It's all thematic. You're driving at the speed of plot. Let's say that the truckers start at mile marker number 1. If they've gone a short distance, have them put down something like 47. A long distance, 214. Again, it's mostly for flavor. Side roads off the main highway don't need mile markers. If something significant happens near this or on a side road, truckers note the road's name. Okay. Nosferatu in a ball cap in front of, I believe that's a Kenworth. Is an odd flex that I wasn't prepared for, but it works. Sorry, a legally distinct Kenworth-like vehicle. The navigator decides how the road is shaped based on descriptions in the narrative or from their own assumptions. They draw that leg as short, curvy, long, straight as they want, again based on narration or assumption. Every trucking team has to keep a log of their long haul in a logbook. Logbooks are used by the Monster Truckers Guild to record what's in the Worstlands for other drivers. Logbooks are also handy when encountering highway patrol, who are sticklers for the old laws of the world. After a scene ends, especially in one where travel occurs, make a note of the mile marker or road where the scene took place, and briefly describe anything significant that happened on a notepad or in an official log trucker's logbook sheet. Be as brief as possible. These are just quick notes, not a novel. Drivers, Rusty and Toast. Destination, New York. Highway, 390. They are traveling with flaming meltdown chips, which are perishable and flammable. I like that. Mile marker 207, stopped a robbery at a gas station. Rusty drained the robber's blood. It tasted bad. Mile marker 252, found weird relic that tried to suck our brains out. Toast tore it apart. Easy. The info at the top of the logbook is helpful to track the long haul, but it is technically optional. In any case, don't let the highway patrol catch you without a completed logbook. Yeah, you have no idea. The CB radio. Most monster truckers use CB or citizens band radios as a way to communicate with each other if they're in multiple vehicles and to the outside world, the world that's outside, that's in the range of their CBs at least. Using the CB happens naturally in the course of play, as well as when a resident of the Worstlands is looking for help and the truckers get a call on their CBs. Sometimes a trucker hit the airways to try and see if anyone has ears on, to get information from other truckers or locals. Monster Truckers Guild strongly encourages all trucking teams to report when they encounter trouble. The truckers appreciate it when they get a heads up on potential dangers. When using the CB radio, ham it up and have fun, make squelch noises, and use trucker lingo. Or, have a radio setting on your devices. By the way, I believe that there is a way to do this with your smartphones where you can download a voice mod for your phone and you just talk into the phone and the phone will amplify what you say via the voice mod, so that if you want to do any of this at a table, for those of you who have local friends and are playing together at a table, I believe there's a way to do it with a voice modulator app for your phone. I'm just not sure which one that is. Success is determined by the goal of the scenario, and it wouldn't. And that way, it would just, if you're using your smartphone, it would look like you're using the hand mic. Legitimately, Gray and I talked about this when we used to do a lot of American Trucking Simulator. Rigging a handheld mic that is designed to look like a CB head, so that we could just talk into the mic like that when we were talking to each other in game. I did find one that was pre-designed and pre-built, but it was like $300, so I said fuck that. Success is determined by the goal of the scenario that the dispatcher lays out. It is usually a mix of solving some sort of problem and delivering their cargo. Failure can come in a few forms, Lord howdy, such as failing to deliver the cargo, if that's the main goal. Other more gruesome forms of failure include the monsters being killed or destroyed. Yikes. I didn't add that one. It says it on the page. Otherwise, failure is dictated by the long haul's goals and can come in degrees from great to terrible. The following truckers have enough detail to use at your table while still giving you some freedom to define them. For rules on how to make your own trucker, see Monster Truckers Long Haul Into the Worstlands core book, which is not available yet. So deal with it. I like these colors. These colors are generally representative here of what you would see in the 70s, for those of you who aren't old, which means that these would be colors you would generally see when trucker culture was at its zenith. So I like that. That's, again, thematically solid. You could put a picture here. You have a character name. You have their handle. Yeah. Height, weight, eyes, age, pronouns. Ah, nice. Man, they slid the DEI right in there on the sheet in a smooth way where I didn't see it at first. Oh, big hearts on that. Love this. Monster type, vampire, archetype, crafty. Background, once a cunning leader and warrior, he now seeks peace on the open road. You know, I know a whole lot of truckers that that is legitimately their backstory. Perks, immortal. Don't know many truckers with that one. Bloodsucker. Necromancy. So, immortal, can't be killed, can be cut in half. We discussed that already. Bloodsucker, interesting way to try to, grab a snack. Necromancy, that was actually discussed. I have necromancy. I'm going to talk to a dead guy. Okay, cool. Quirks, an Achilles heel, stake to the heart. An Achilles heel, arrogant. So, How would you utilize these? The first one I see mostly being a GM fiat. If they badly fail something, like a combat roll against somebody, maybe something gets pushed through the center of their chest and actually stakes them. That would be how I would use that as a GM. Arrogant. That would be one that the player could easily use, like in any kind of social role situation. They're talking to people and they're trying to persuade someone to give them something, but they decide to make their role more difficult because, you know, obviously they're going to talk in a hoity-toity way, talking down their nose to the person that they're trying to persuade, which makes the persuasion harder. That is an easy way to use the quirk. Bonus points way to use this quirk in a non-social setting. You need to repair something. You need to fight somebody. You need to do anything that doesn't involve talking. Rather than letting the rest of your party help, you go, no, that's okay. I can handle this one on my own. And then it immediately gets harder. Gear, meh. Resolve, meh. Afflictions, meh. They get filled in as you go. One thing that this didn't cover, which I'm assuming will be in Tricube Tales, is what are you rolling for your attributes that aren't, what are you rolling for your archetypes that aren't your archetype? Are you rolling 2d6? Are you rolling 1d6? All I know is that you know, Tooth Boy here is rolling 3d6 for crafty. I don't know what he's rolling for agile or brawny. So we'd have to check the game engine for that. Lucky is an agile mummy. Former model, tried to keep up their look via experimental treatments. They are immortal. They can control bugs, and they're a good liar. Good liar is a neat perk. Achilles heel fire, phobia fire. Pretty straightforward. Anytime you're doing anything where you think that there's a possibility that something could get lit on fire, as a player, you can go, okay, but I'm going to be really nervous about this because I'm afraid that if I turn this the wrong way, it's going to kaboom. The Achilles heel, again, mostly probably used by the GM, but that would be the same as the other Achilles heel, so I'm okay with that. Is an Achilles heel a requirement perk? Because we've 3 characters in and each one has one. Or is it just easier that way? Also, this is the only one that only has 2 perks so far. Werewolf. Agile. Was a normal human until bitten by a rogue werewolf. Now forced to live on the open road. They are stubborn, and their heel is silver weapons. They have a keen smell, and they are hard to kill. And then Toast. They're a zipper, former soldier, raised from the dead to fight, and refused. They are super strong. They have a tough hide, and they're a mechanic. Quirks are they are messy, and they are electricity dependent. I think the only problem I ever have with a system like this, so that is completely open-ended in descriptions, is this is a mechanic that favors creative players. And somewhat punishes less creative players. As soon as you have a system that is mostly narrative, I unfortunately feel that that's something that you almost can't escape. However, this game system kind of reinforces that. Some players will really enjoy this kind of a system. Some will really not like it. So that's going to vary table to table. Such as this is a system that and also I feel that some players will find ways to almost abuse the system. Not that you really can. The dispatcher is the final arbiter anyway. But I think some players that are really good at phrasing things and really good at angling towards their strengths can figure out quirks that may give them a near cheesy advantage. So this is something that I think the dispatcher has to be aware of. For example, if you have a player at your table whose name rhymes with Bacchus, expect that he's going to find a way to work his perks into just about anything and use his quirks just about any time he feels he needs to, and yet make sure they never come up in any situation where he doesn't want them to come up. The plus is, even a non-creative player can make sure that quirks don't come up in times where they don't want them to with this system. So that's why I say sort of cheese it. But again, just as a dispatcher, be aware of who at your table you may need to rein in a little bit, and who you may need to poke with a stick in order to have them get the most out of their character. And what I mean by that is, if you have a player that has difficulty utilizing their quirks, but they keep burning through their resolve points using their perks, you may need to introduce suggestions to them that will help them realize ways that they can utilize their quirks to their advantage. Again, not necessarily a game problem, just be aware of your table and understand that your table may require, especially until they get used to the system, a little more direction than they may be used to from other games. All right. And for anyone who wants to try to follow this on and get involved, there is a QR code to make your life easier. I'm going to make this larger on screen so that I can also make your life easier. So anyone that is playing the home game, perhaps you can scan this. Perhaps not. Life is a mystery. I don't know that I want to blow it up any larger than that. Oh, I can't. Cool. Because it's already starting to blur, and QR codes do not like blur. So feel free to pause and scan the doobly-doo. All right. So that gives us an overview This is a taste test of the fundamental rules for Monster Truckers Long Haul into the Worstlands. With your help funding, the full game will include character creation rules, more monster types, and rules to make your own monsters, more details on trucks and rules for them, more background lore to inspire adventures, interesting locations and cool characters, details on factions in the Worstlands. I'm looking forward to that. Thematic perk and quirk suggestions, vehicle and quirk suggestions. Vehicle perk and quirk suggestions. Details on escort vehicles. Blocker. CB Lingo Guide. A CB prop. Ooh. An adventure. And loads more. Highway 95. Mile marker 5. Didn't stick around to figure out what this thing was. That's a great description. It's got arms under legs. It's got a skull. It's got antlers. It's got what look like grave flowers growing out of the middle of its back. I think it's lovely. I will name him Harold. So that's a quick review on Monster Truckers, the test drive. This is currently available on DriveThru RPG. It is a $1 pay what you want. You can pay nothing. You can pay the suggested $1. You can pay more than $1 if you really feel that you want to throw money at this before it even goes on backer kit, I guess. So if anybody is interested in picking this up, you can grab that from backer kit. If anybody is interested in Table Cat games, let's see if I can do this. I can't do this. I was going to try to put a link to their Discord. Into the chat. But I cannot. How did I get into this Discord? That is the question. Let me see if I can find y'all a link real quick. All right. If I can't find a link for that, here is at the very least a link to the Table Cat Games website. Also, I'm just going to point out that this company is also responsible for another game that you heard me talk about before, and we almost ran a campaign of, called Street Wolves. Street Wolves is a retro 80s action setting for Savage Worlds that is basically the unofficial Kung Fury, the role-playing game. Or at least it would have been when we ran it. The entire reason why we didn't run it is I could just never get excited for running Savage Worlds, and I don't know why. It's not a bad system. It's just one that never really grabs me for whatever reason. Apparently, we have 2 months before this game goes live, which seems like a lot. Like, that seems like a large lead-in. But TableCat has been better at this than I have with their Kickstarter success. So I'm not going to question their judgment. Also, if you don't want to go to DriveThru RPG, you can also get it from Itchio on a name your own price as well. just because I know there are people that prefer the itchy. So if you prefer itchy, you can get it there. If you prefer scratchy, you can get it there. The choice, they be yours. I legit don't know how I got into the Discord. Can't find it. Okay. No worries. Anyway, so folks, is this something that you would like to see me run as a... I'm not going to even say a full campaign, but maybe just like a short run, like 4 to 8 sessions. Nothing crazy big, but just something long enough to, you know, get a feel for it. Does it sound like something you'd enjoy to play? Does it sound like something you'd enjoy to watch? And if it's something you would enjoy to watch, which one of our regulars would you be most interested in seeing involved in this thing? Ari says, I think it's adorable. I don't see it as anybody's This Is All My Club Plays game, but a short campaign, an October campaign, something like that. Yeah, I would agree. I think that's solid. Shiny says he'd be up for playing. All right. That's pretty straightforward. That's gonna take care of our review for this. You might see more of this on the channel in the near future. We'll talk about it. At the very least, I do think that if you have a party that likes narrative games, if you have a party that likes really open style gameplay, I definitely feel like this is a good option. So I would suggest giving this a once over. Pick up the rules for $1 for the test drive. I don't expect that you're going to I don't expect that you're going to think that was a waste of time or money. Kick the tires a little bit, take it out for a test drive, see what you think. I think this would be a fun little system. It gives you a fairly understandable premise, and then just get whimsical with it, be a little goofy, come up with weird puns that you can base monsters or modules around. Yeah, like even test drive. Exactly. Yeah. Like, this is not a super serial, grimdark kind of game. If you try doing it that way, you are most definitely doing it wrong. But this would be a fun little one to, knock around, move about, see what happens next. So, that's going to be our review for this. We're going to keep the show going. I'm going to get up and take a break in a second. But if for some reason this winds up on YouTube or somewhere else where somebody's got access to it, like, subscribe, do the things, tell your friends, send links, yada yada, do all the stuff that you're already supposed to do. And if you're sitting here on Twitch, hang out for a minute. I'm going to get up, take a walk around, probably throw some ads up just to reset our counter for not showing pre-roll ads for people coming in. And we will be back in probably about 3 minutes. So if you are just intending to be a player in this and not a dispatcher, you probably want to end the video here. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, do all the things. Make sure you check out our other stuff. But what we are about to go into now is the review of the included module. So if you think that you might be playing in that module, you likely don't want to watch the rest of this video. Once again, thank you for making it this far. I will not be offended if you leave without watching the rest of the video. Algorithm be damned. It's more important for the players to get what the players want out of the source material than my numbers. So thank you. Good luck. Enjoy the open road, and we'll see you again soon. Long haul, Midwest Bound and Down. Midwest Bound and Down is designed to get dispatchers and truckers acclimated to the world of monster truckers. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to play and can comfortably accommodate 2 to 4 truckers. It's also written assuming that there's one big rig, but works just as well if there are 2 trucks on the road. Recently, a Human Corp Tech Reclamation Patrol discovered a forgotten wartime genetics factory. Oh, those pesky, pesky factories always getting forgotten. They did a ridiculous thing of firing it back up and accidentally awakening a genetically modified gremlin. This king gremlin killed most of the patrol and forced the survivors to activate the machinery. The king gremlin is building an army and his subjects and causing chaos in the region. That needs to be are, not and. Trust me, I'm rubbish without an editor too. I get it. Human Corp is preparing to wipe all the gremlins out, which means dropping a nuke on the entire region. I mean, it's the only way to be sure. The start. Mile marker 232. The long haul begins with truckers driving down Highway 141 with a trailer full of flaming meltdown chips. Their destination is a United Truck Stops and Greasy Spoons distribution facility in a town called Crabapple Gulch. Love the name. The journey has been monotonous, full of long, empty roads and wide open sky. When the long haul starts, the landscape has changed. Large skeleton-like dead trees dominate the landscape. The sky is overcast and gray. The road is wet from an almost permanent drizzle. It looks like the area is in forever autumn. I don't know enough to know if these are constants or if these are just things that happen like in that scene. As in, like, if all of the Worstlands is permanently autumn or not. The truckers are suddenly faced with a problem. There's a ravine ahead, but the bridge is out. Ah, tropey gone a trope. The truck has to stop before their big rig goes over the busted bridge and into the abyss. This is a level 5 challenge. Failures should be interesting, but not deadly, such as the rig losing resolve from putting too much stress on the brakes in an attempt to stop in time. Why not just jump it? The truckers could attempt to jump the broken bridge using magic, jump the truck, or by some similar means. That's a difficulty 6 challenge. And must come with a warning to the truckers that failure is catastrophic. They may be immortal, but a truck plunging into the bottom of a valley is not. If they are brave or foolish enough to try it and succeed, they are rewarded by getting back on the highway near Beaver Tail Road and the world's tallest barn and cheese shop. Investigating the bridge. Looking at the bridge reveals that it has suffered some intense damage that brought it down. A crafty challenge of 5 reveals that it appears as if the bridge was intentionally destroyed, but you can't just normally do something like this without explosives, and none were used here. If a trucker rolls well enough or has a perk that gives them some extra insight into the situation, such as keen smell, don't be afraid to tell them the likely culprits are gremlins. Finding an alternate route. When the bridge is out, they'll probably try to come up with an alternate route. There are several different ways to do this, but looking at maps, asking for help on the CB, and scouting ahead by flying or some other means produces 2 alternatives. Country Route B. This route appears to be longer, but is likely to be better maintained and an easier drive. Old Adams Road. This route appears to be shorter, but it might be more difficult and in ill repair. While driving down the road, the truckers notice a thumping sound on the truck. Sharp-eyed truckers catch glimpses of weird blurs moving on the edge of perception. Investigating further reveals that some dang old gremlins are on the truck and they're doing their best to mess with it. A word about gremlins. Creatures known as gremlins existed long before the film bearing their name. True. It's up to you to know how you want to portray the creatures here, but it is not intended you follow any particular lore. You can think of them as some sort of chaotic goblin, or maybe a more intelligent and cunning creature. It's entirely up to you and your truckers. We're looking for the Krites. This is a major event that requires 5 effort tokens to win. The gremlins focus on damaging the truck, so the trucker checks can come in the form of driving, or physically magically blocking, or knocking them off the truck. It's up to the truckers to get the gremlins to stop, which doesn't necessarily mean physical violence. Just play this scene really loose, with the truckers' action driving what happens and have fun with it. What this means for a less experienced GM. This is a major scene. It involves gremlins trying to damage the truck. It requires 5 stopped gremlins from damaging the truck to win. You can stop the gremlins are trying to shut down the truck, and it requires 5 stop them from shutting down the trucks to win. The driver can stop them from shutting down the truck by successfully making a driving check after they damage the truck. The character that is inevitably carrying a pistol or sawed-off shotgun can try to shoot gremlins. If they succeed, they have removed a gremlin and gained a token. If the driver succeeds in driving, even though the gremlins damaged something, but are able to keep the truck moving, that's a token. If a player reaches into their bag and they are crafty and they grab some snacks and go, "Hey, goblin, nom-noms," and throw the nom-noms and succeed in distracting the gremlin away from the truck long enough to go get the nom-noms, and then thus not being able to get back to the truck again because the truck kept driving, that's a success. If a trucker who is crafty wants to taunt a goblin, by singing the Bard Nat 20 song, "You're a short motherfucker and nobody ever liked you," and gets a success, that counts as a token. Anything the players can come up with as a token counts as a token. Again, really rewarding creative players. Your less experienced or less creative players, you might need to nudge a little bit. But any action should be enough of an action. Option 2, Old Adams Road. Driving down Old Adams Road is an exercise in frustration. It's in rough shape, so rough that it's nearly non-existent. I know that road. The truck is basically off-roading at this point. If you're making the truckers do a challenge for this, it should be a level 5, with failure resulting in the truck getting stuck, and then another challenge 5 to move it, or on a critical failure getting stuck with the truck getting a bad suspension affliction. Once the crew gets to where the highway meets Old Adams, they spot a crashed Human Corp Security Division truck. The soldiers were part of a patrol sent to scout for and report on the gremlin threat. The truck. The truck is a typical armored troop transport Human Court oppression machine. I love the term oppression machine. That's going to be the name of my next punk band. Except that it's been flipped over and smashed real good. An investigative mind may piece together from the skid marks on the road and the tracks in the dirt that it lost control before flipping. Dead soldiers. There's 5 dead Human Corp troops clad in protective biosuits. The suits and resulting fleshy bits are torn from what looks like claws, No check is required. There's a lot of shell casings around indicating that there was a firefight. Again, no check required. Thank you, Morden. A radio on one of the deceased soldiers crackles to life and says, Unit 65, what is your status? Over. It is the local security division HQ looking for an update. Any gremlins encountered on Country Road B or Old Adams can be wearing the world's largest barn and cheese shop merch, like t-shirts and hats. That's nice. If the truckers converse with the local security division, the operator wants to know who they are and what happened to the patrol. They'll be suspicious of the truckers and request that they continue along Highway 141, traveling until they reach a military checkpoint where they are to make an official statement. There are half a dozen intact signs along 141 urging drivers to get off the road and see the world's tallest barn and cheese shop. These signs promise all kinds of delight, including fresh cheese curds. They're probably not that fresh anymore. The exit for the barn is easily identifiable, and the tourist trap is located a mile down Beaver Tail Road. A barn and outbuildings have seen a lot of better days, and it's surprising that everything's still standing. The main attraction is the world's tallest barn. The barn is actually a normal-sized barn, but sits on stilts that raise it several stories higher than it normally would be. That's hilarious and useless and dumb, and I'm here for it. There is a winding, rusted metal staircase that leads up to the front door and an old elevator that would need to be repaired before it can be used. The interior of the barn used to contain a cheese shop / gift store and displays on farm life. Most of that is shoved to the side, and the place is furnished like a home. Much of the remaining merch has been stolen by the gremlins. The residents are Eddie. Take out that A werewolf who is stuck in human form. He looks like a classic movie monster werewolf with more human features. Then there's Gramps, a vampire who must have been turned in his 80s because he's one of the oldest looking vampires the truckers have ever seen. I'm not going to spoil this, but I love the reference. Truckers may run into these two, clearing the grounds from dead gremlins, or the duo may wave the truckers down to get their help. Gramps and Eddie's let the truckers know the gremlins are a huge nuisance and that they're not normally this aggressive. By nature, they're usually just mischievous and are rarely so bold. This is highly unusual behavior. The pair also let the truckers know that the gremlins are coming from further down the road and gives them details they've heard about the military buildup, or the checkpoint. They've heard rumors that the military is planning on dropping a bomb on them and whatever else the dispatcher needs to relate. There's a military checkpoint with dozens of vehicles and even more soldiers armed with high-tech killing devices that humans love. Any trucker trying to get past the checkpoint without stopping is basically choosing to be erased from the world. It may be possible to sneak around on foot, but getting an intact truck through is impossible. I disagree. I've seen Convoy. There's a few big rigs pulled off to the side with impound stickers on them. Folks in hazmat suits are carefully examining them. Truckers approaching the checkpoint are stopped in order to get out of their vehicle. If they refuse or indicate they want to go back, they're told that they can go back the way they came, but they won't be able to pass through. If the truckers talk to the military, they're pulled into a tent where an officer asks them questions about who they are, what they're doing, and what they know about the gremlins in an accusing tone. If the truckers try to cut a deal, the officer may be willing to let them try to solve the problem without having to drop a nuke in the area. That's nice. Otherwise, if it doesn't come up with the officer, the truckers can overhear from some soldiers talking about the bomb and get an idea from them that if the gremlin problem is taken care of, then they can call off the attack. Hey, Sir Shiny, ain't nothing gonna stand in our way. About a mile away from the world's tallest barn, on a road marked private, is the source of the problem. There's dozens of dead trees that block view to the abandoned facility with a narrow winding path that used to be an entrance to it. No period. Next sentence begins. There's dozens of dead trees that block the view to an abandoned facility, comma, with a narrow winding path that used to be an entrance to it. Period. That works. A large fence surrounds the facility and there's an unmanned gate at the front. Whatever security they offered is long gone, and the fence is rusted with large holes in it, and some sections it's collapsed from fallen trees. There's rusted metal signs that are askew, warning trespassers to keep out or they'll be shot on sight. So just make yourself invisible. There's a large sign on it that says BioFriends Research, a Human Corp partner. The interior looks like a mix of a ruined, ultra-modern, and well-funded lab, Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory, and a factory. Most of it is busted and ruined, but the power runs through the place, and sounds of operating machinery echo through the facility. In one corner is a mountain of wrecked machinery and scrap metal. Most of it appears to be from this building, but there are vehicle parts and other objects obtained by rampaging gremlins that decorate it and the surrounding area. Perched on top of the mountain is a makeshift throne to the largest gremlin the truckers have ever seen. He's an impressive 5 feet tall. Admittedly, he's not gigantic, but the Goblin King is almost pure muscle, sharp teeth and claws, and has enough of a brain to be dangerous. The facility is full of goblins goofing off and having a grand old time. Some are quote-unquote working on the science experiments, and others are tinkering on dangerous-looking devices. There's also a large machine that is churning out gremlins every few minutes. There's a couple of clearly exhausted human scientists operating the machine. The scientists know that Human Corp's response to the situation is likely to drop a nuke, so they'll warn the truckers about it as soon as they're able. There are a few ways to deal with the situation, including negotiating with the Gremlin King to have him relocate, or otherwise cease activities that are going to result in a nuke on their heads. It's possible, but difficult. Level 6 crafty event with at least 3 resolve. Failing such a challenge results in the king ordering his subjects to kill the truckers. Otherwise, everyone can just fight it out. Swarms of gremlins, difficulty 4, resolve 1. Gremlin guards, difficulty 5, resolve 2 each. King Gremlin, difficulty 5, resolve 5. Encourage the truckers to be creative and think outside the box. Allow them to let loose and have fun with it. Wrapping things up. Ending this adventure should be pretty obvious. 141 is nuked, the truckers get rid of the gremlins, or some other wild thing happens. That's the beauty of life. You don't know how things will go. It's all up to the players and how the dice are rolled. If they were successful and still have their load intact and are ready to deliver, you could put an end on this mission by describing them backing the truck into the dock, getting out looking brushed and worn out, and signing the paperwork with a slightly peeved shipping clerk chastising them for being late.